All right, First John chapter 3. We have covered through several different subjects as far as systematic theology is concerned, and we just finished up in our last time that we met together, looking at the subject of mankind, the doctrine of man. And so naturally, we want to now progress over to the doctrine of sin, and that's what we're going to begin talking about today. And this will take us several different meetings to kind of be able to work through and get a good biblical understanding of what sin is and what it does, what its effects are, and just kind of how it works. And we'll even talk a little bit about our resistance to sin, that we're not supposed to just kind of roll over and play dead, mentality, but God has given us, different resources to be able to actually fight against sin. So I kind of combine these two together because sin is such a intricate part of the chemistry of man. The principle of sin is within all of us. All of us are born with a sin nature. And so the question becomes for us, which one came first, the chicken or the egg, kind of thing. And so what I mean by that is in regards to sin, do we sin because we have a sin nature, or do we have a sin nature because we sin? And the answer would be that all of us are born with a sin nature, but none of us are condemned necessarily because we have a sin nature. I'm not saying that's not true, but the biblical judgment that is passed upon us is not that we are all going to die because we have a sin nature, but it's because we have all proactively sinned. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And the wages of sin, that is the actual act of sin, is death. The soul that sins, it shall surely die. And so we need to understand something. We can't do anything about the nature of sin that is within us, but we can get a better understanding of how that nature influences us, and how it influences us, and therefore we're more ready to more prepared, I guess. This is like us watching the tape before the football game that's coming up Friday night. So we're a little bit more prepared for the offense and the defense that we're going to be facing. Okay, gentlemen. So just a kind of a launching point here for us. First John chapter 3, verse number 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. That is one of the most basic definitions of sin that we would find in the Bible, that sin is an actual violation of the rule of God. And that is not just a reference, the word law, that is not just a reference to the Ten Commandments. Adam and Eve violated the rule or the law of God whenever they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And you and I break the law of God when we are not kind one to another, when we are not forgiving one of another, or when we have malice or bitterness or whatever rule there is established by God. When we either fall short, we come up short to fulfilling what God has told us to do, or we go beyond what God has allowed us to do, then we have violated His rule, and therefore we have sinned. Now, the Bible is full of information concerning sin. In fact, the Bible has 66 books, 1,189 chapters that we find inside of our Bible. And only 4 chapters are not in some way influenced by sin out of the entire revelation of the Word of God. And that would be the first 2 chapters of your Bible and the last 2 chapters of your Bible. The first 2 chapters are before the entrance of sin as far as the world of humanity is concerned, and the last 2 chapters is after Christ has taken care of the sin problem and we arrive in the eternal state, living without the presence of sin. And so between Genesis 3 and Revelation chapter 20, the Bible is either dealing with the effects of sin, the influence of sin, the consequence of sin, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. There is, of course, the presence of sin. That is a constant reality. Sin is a constant reality as far as its presence in our everyday life. We have never lived one day without the presence of sin. I would argue that we have never lived one day without the practice of sin. Unfortunately, we are so so subject to it. We are so weak in our actual flesh. Okay. So when we're talking about sin, sin is a very complex subject. And so what I wanted to do this morning right off the bat is I wanted to run through just some different ideas that the Bible presents concerning sin. And I did this in my own personal study, just looking at some of the different words as they show up inside of our English Bible and how they're translated from the Hebrew and the Greek. I'm not going to give you those words, and I wanted to take time to read corresponding verses for all of these, but that would pretty much take all of our time. And so I'm just going to run through these real quick. Like I wrote down 9. This isn't an exhaustive list of how the Bible deals with the concept of sin, but just to kind of give us a working understanding of what sin is. To begin with, number 1, the Bible defines sin as a missing of the mark. Of course, Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And so there's the mark, there's the bullseye, and we're all aiming for that bullseye, and that bullseye is perfection, and yet none of us have hit that mark that God has said. All of us fall short of actually glorifying God in everything we say, everything we do, everything we think, everything that we are. Now, Jerry may get a little bit closer than Mason. I would assume that he does. Everybody does. And so we may get, some may get a little bit closer to that mark, but it doesn't matter because all of us have missed that mark. Number 2, it is to rebel against God. God says in Isaiah 1 and verse number 2, God speaks of his people actually rebelling against him. Number 3, the Bible defines sin as a passing over of the law or the commands of God in the sense of ignoring it. As if I come to a situation in my life and there is a decision to be made, and I clearly understand that there's a biblical law, there's a rule of God governing what kind of decision that I should make. I'm aware of that law. However, whenever I come to make my decision, I just ignore the reality of that law, and I just bypass it, or I pass over, I step over the law of God and go on to do whatever it is that I have decided to do. Number 4, the Bible defines sin as being the opposite of what is right. And of course, you could guess that shows up by the term unrighteousness inside of our Bibles. And so sin is the opposite of what is right. In other words, it is unrighteous, or it is what is wrong. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse number 12 talks about those individuals who had pleasure in unrighteousness. They had pleasure in doing the opposite of what is right. Number 5, it defines sin as wandering or straying away. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse number 17, a wandering away. They've been led astray, going away from what is right. Kind of like a sheep just wandering away from the fold, wandering away from where it should be. And so again, that's what sin is. All we like sheep have done what? We've gone astray. We've done what is according to what is right in our own minds. And so we've kind of wandered away. Number 6, the Bible defines sin in terms of lawlessness, which shows up in our New Testament by the word iniquity the majority of time. For instance, in Matthew 7:23, Jesus is telling that hypothetical crowd, "Depart from me, ye that work iniquity." I never knew you. And the idea is lawlessness, and lawlessness is simply a refusing to live by the law of God. It's very akin to the concept of ignoring the law of God. There is the law, but it's not that I put it out of mind. This is more also of a rebellion. There is the law, and yet I am not going to live according to the law. Number 7, it defines sin as disobedience, Romans 11, verse 31. Number 8, it defines sin as something that is against the actual character of God. This concept of sin will show up normally in the New Testament by the term ungodliness. And so what is ungodly is what is not godly. What is godly is reflective of the character of God. Therefore, what is ungodly is not reflective of the character of God. Jude, verse number 18, will be a great example of that. And then the 9th one here is the Bible defines sin in terms of being a lawbreaker, which is a very easy concept for us to grab. And so if you have if you have sinned, you have broken the law of God. You have violated the law of God. Romans chapter 2, verse 23, again, speaking, sometimes translated as the term unrighteousness. We are not doing what is right. And so hopefully with just those 9 kind of different concepts of what sin is, we understand that the nature of sin is kind of multidimensional. There are different ways, different nuances, different variations of how sin kind of manifests itself. There'll be some times where in sin we are just simply ignoring the fact that the presence of sin is there, or the concept of sin is present in whatever situation we're in. But there'll be other times that we know it's there, and we even recognize it's there. You know, how many times have we thought before we have done something, man, I know this is wrong, and yet we have gone on to do it in a spirit of rebellion. And so the Bible is capturing all those kind of different multidimensional concepts of what sin is. So with this, the variations of sin, the question that I'd love for us to kind of answer in developing more of a solid definition of what sin is there, in all of these various forms of sin, is there a core element that is present in every act of sin that you and I may ever commit? Is there one, one relevant truth or reality that is always present in sin? And I would say yes. And so that's kind of where we want to build to this morning, is seeing that common element that is present in all of the behaviors of sin that we might exhibit. To get to that point, we first need to understand, or we first need to make up our mind that we need to see sin or understand sin from God's perspective. Now, that's important, honestly, because you and I are not going to see sin from our own perspective. We're not going to understand sin. In fact, you and I do a very good job of rationalizing why something is not sin. Why it's okay to lie on our taxes, or why it's okay to tell this lie in this situation, or why, fill in the blank. We are very good at explaining sin away. And so we don't want to formulate, or we don't want to view sin from our own perspective. We don't want to understand sin from our own perspective, but we need to see sin and understand sin from God's perspective. So from God's perspective, we need to understand that sin is a violation of the creator and created relationship. And what I mean by that is that if you are the creator of something, then what you have created, wouldn't you assume that what you have created has an obligation to obey you, to fulfill whatever desire you have? Because what you have made would not be in existence if you had not made it. Now, I'm going to give you kind of a lesser illustration of that, okay? I do not intend by this illustration that you and I have created anything, okay? So just stick with me here. But in the relationship of a dog owner to a dog, again, I completely am aware of the fact that we have not made the canine, okay? We have not made the dog, but I am the dog owner, okay? And by owning the dog, by me feeding the dog and watering the dog and taking the dog to the vet and, doing all of these, the dog lives the good life. What I expect from the dog is when I say, come here, I expect the dog to come here. When I tell the dog, don't chew up the shoes, I expect the dog not to chew up the shoes, okay? I am the sustainer of life in a sense to this dog. I provide for this dog. I expect this dog to listen to me. And when this dog doesn't listen to me, I have very bad thoughts about the dog. I get very mad and frustrated with the dog. And the dog is in jeopardy of being beaten because I want the dog to listen. Okay. So that's something maybe that all of us can relate to. Now, in our relationship as the created with the creator, we owe everything to God. Okay. Not only has he made us, but he has sustained us. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Job freely confessed that the Lord gave, and it is the Lord that takes away. And so at the end of the day, all we can say is, blessed be the name of the Lord. No one can fight against his will. You know, we're here today because God has allowed us to be here today. And so we owe everything that we have to God. So doesn't it stand to warrant that we should feel an obligation to actually fall in line with his commandments, to obey whatever there is that God would have us to obey, to line our character and our behavior up with whatever standard there is that God has established. Okay, so God as the creator has given us parameters to operate by. And whenever we sin, what we have done is we have violated those parameters. We have become the dog who is sitting on the porch and the owner is saying, come. And we say, no, if I'm going to exercise my own will here. I want to do what I want to do. And I know I got beat last time for chewing up the boots. But if you put the boots back outside tonight, I want to chew the boots up because I'm not going to fall in line with the will of my master. I am rather going to do my own thing. Okay. When I say that we are going to do our own thing, what I'm talking about is a word called autonomy. I hope you're familiar with that word. Okay. The word autonomy simply means that I am attempting to live a self-governing life, that I am going to make my own decisions. Okay. So like, autonomy is not necessarily a bad word. Whenever we talk about our church, Fellowship Baptist Church, is an autonomous church, meaning that we are not affiliated with a convention that comes in and says, well, you can do this, but you cannot do that. You can teach on this, but you cannot teach on that. Or here's how you spend your money. We are an independent church. We are an autonomous church. Yeah, thank the Lord, right? Okay, so that's good in that sense. But what we have to do is we have to ask ourselves the question, is it good for us as individuals to be autonomous individuals? And the answer to that is no. Just real quickly back to the church. When we say that we're autonomous in the sense of mankind, but we're not autonomous when it comes to our relationship with God. We are as a church, we are obligated. We are held responsible to governing our church the way that God says a church ought to be governed. And we should look for no other authority to set those boundaries. So we're talking about mankind. Mankind is not created to be autonomous. Mankind is created to be in subjection to the will of God. For whatever it is that we are doing, we are to fall within the parameters of God. Okay, so the argument that I would make, the case that I would make, is that autonomy is at the core of every sin that we commit, whether it is an impure thought, whether it is a misspoken word, whether it is taking something that does not belong to me, whether it is an act of violence, whatever action there is and whatever reasoning there may be behind the action. At the core of every sin, there is a thought of autonomy. That is, that I do not have to behave myself the way that God has required. God is saying, come. And I am saying, no, thank you. I think I'll do my own thing. Now, this is true in Satan's world as well as mankind's world. It shows up in Satan's world in Isaiah chapter 14 and that famous list of the, 7 I will statements made by Satan in his, as he is falling. And in Isaiah 14, verse number 14, here's what Satan says. He says, I will be like the Most High. Now, what is he saying in that? Well, what Satan is actually saying is, I will be self-governing. I will be the person that no one can order. Okay, when we think about God, we fully affirm and offer to God by way of our belief that He is sovereign. And what sovereign means is that He doesn't answer to us. You know, who has been his counselor? No one has been. We offer no counsel to God. At no point has any man ever been able to say to God, in truth, God, you should have done something this way, okay? Or persuaded God in any way. He is not a man that he should repent. He has no ability to change who he is or what he has desired to do based upon man's spoken advice to the Lord. Okay. However, when it came to Satan says, I want to be like that. I want to be the person that nobody bosses. I want to be the person that nobody controls. Now, one way that we see sin rearing its head in this satanic manner, if you will, a lot of times is you'll hear people make those kinds of statements. You'll hear people say, well, nobody's going to tell me what to do. Or they'll know what's right. And they'll say, well, I'm going to do this anyway. We'll say that to ourselves, don't we? I know this is wrong, but I know the owner's saying, come. I know I shouldn't. I know God said, but I'm going to act independently of God. Okay. Now from Satan, let's go to mankind. And there's actually a combination here of Satan and mankind, because in Genesis chapter 3, when Satan in the form of the serpent, in possession of the serpent, comes to Eve and begins communicating with Eve concerning eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What is his justification for influencing Eve to do that? He says to Eve, you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Now, we don't have time to get into all the semantics of this, but the word gods there is the same word as God, Elohim. It's just translated because it represents a plurality in that sense. The translators are capturing that this is just how we view deity in any sense. It would be an autonomous creature. So what Satan is actually saying to Eve is, when you eat this, you are going to be able to decide for yourself what is right and what is wrong. You're going to be like the gods. You're going to be like deity. You're going to be like God himself, someone, a being that no one can decide what you should be doing. You'll be self-governing. Okay. That is the lie that Eve literally swallowed that day, and Adam ate from it as well. And humanity is cursed by that core element of sin. Romans chapter 1, verse 25, thousands of years into the future. Here's the indictment upon society, that they changed the truth of God into a lie. Listen to the verbiage here. And they worshiped and served the creature more than the creator. The creature becomes more important than the creator. We exalt ourselves to an autonomous position that if there is a decision, if I do come to a crossroads where I say I want to do this, but God says I should do this, then I think to myself, I can be self-governing. I can make my own decision. I can decide for myself what is right and what is wrong. That's the problem we have with our kids, right? We tell our kids, you do this. And the kid says, I don't do that. I want to do my own thing. Instead of cleaning my room, I want to go out, I want to go outside and do my own thing. Or instead of picking this up out of the yard, instead of hanging the bicycle back up underneath the shoulder, I want to go do my own thing. And so there's this self-governing element where we are exalting the creature above the creator. We are exalting the created over the creator. And we're saying to ourselves, well, who is God to reign over us? Who does God think he is? Why should God be able to call us? Now, we would never say that in a church service where everybody's sharing testimonies, but we say that in our heart. Every time we meet that crossroads and we make the wrong decision, we're saying, God doesn't deserve to reign over me. I can call my own shots. Okay, so right here at the end, if you were to ask me to define sin, what is a good working definition of sin? And there's some great ones out there. The Baptist Confession of Faith gives a good one. The Keach's Catechism, what is sin, gives a great definition on sin. There are some awesome definitions on sin, and I did borrow from those but just in a very brief definition of sin. Sin, by definition, is a lack of conformity to the will of God. Here's the mold. Here's what God expects of us. And we fall short of conforming to that. And the core element that prevents us from conforming to the will of God is an expression of autonomy. That's the core element in the definition of sin, I believe. Different folks have different things. Augustine believed pride was the core element, and you can definitely see that. There are definitely, where you can run to that, and you can see that's a reality in all of sin. But what is pride? Pride is self-exaltation. Pride is me building up myself and saying self is more important than Savior. Self is more important than you. I'll be unkind to you because I'm more important than you. Yes. Right? I'll do whatever it is in life because I'm more important than whatever the supposed consequences are. And so sin is a lack of conformity to the will of God. And that lack of conformity to the will of God is based upon an expression of autonomy, of me being a self-governing creature. Okay?